Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock Pacific, and I am starting on time. It's good to be with you all. Hopefully, you can join me live. Otherwise, I hope that you continue to watch the videos that are posted in this group. I would love to hear from most of you. If you have a chance to reach out or ask questions, you can always post in the group, or you can always feel free to message me directly. Today's discussion is something I feel very passionate about. Obviously, I'm passionate about inner work. That's why we're all here. But I'm extremely passionate about this chronic need to receive external validation and how prevalent it is. It's prevalent in our conditioning. We're growing up, between the ages of 0 to 6. For those of you that have, done the work with me, you know that these are the formative years. This is when there's no real filter or identity present to absorb or not absorb the energy of our environment. We're just kind of absorbing it all. And during these early survival years where the ego is being formed and we're inheriting the values of our caregivers, it becomes, of utmost importance. In fact, our survival depends upon the validation that we receive from our caregivers, right? We look to our parents, our caregivers, our seniors, whoever is raising us. We look to them to see how we're supposed to react, how, if we're supposed to feel good about ourselves, not good about ourselves, does this get me love and attention? Does this get me things that feel good? Or does this behavior get me the opposite? Is this something I'm not supposed to do? And so we are conditioned from early life to look to our external environment to gauge our level of appropriateness, our level of what's acceptable, our level of what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong, what gets us more attention and what gets us the wrong kind of attention. And so we learn in early life to gauge our environment and heavily rely on our environment for our need for emotional support, safety, security, belonging, all those fundamental needs we have as human beings that are either being met or not met in our early childhood environment. We're using, the emotional reflections of our caregivers to gauge what works and what doesn't work, right? And we never unlearn this behavior. Right? No one ever pulls us aside at some point, when the ego has been fully formed around 12, 13 years old. We have a sort of a sense of identity established, and we start to push back and individuate. This would be the normal phase of when an adult would pull you aside and say, okay, it's time for you to learn how to meet your own needs. It's time for you to learn how to love and accept yourself, how to cherish yourself, how to listen to your intuition, how to obey and honor your body's signals, how to really source yourself regardless of what's happening around you, right? Because everyone has their own idea of what's right and wrong, what's good and bad, what's beautiful, what's not beautiful, what's intelligent, what's not intelligent, what is the measure of success or not success, right? And so we live in a very subjective world, right? And we try to gauge our relationship to this world based on, popular opinion or based on what's most acceptable or what is the average, right? And most of us find ourselves very disconnected from what actually feels authentic to who we are, what's right for us, right? And this is where we start to continuously succumb to these external power structures, even when we don't need to. Right? As children, we have to rely on, the feedback from our parents because our survival depends on them, right? So we rely heavily on their feedback because we want their love and we want their support and we want them to be there for us. And as we grow older and we no longer need someone to, support us in that way, in that early childhood way, we no longer need to be so heavily reliant on other people's opinions of us, whether or not they feel, we are good or worthy of love or not, right? And so we look at, this childhood phase really sets us up to continuously look outside of ourselves for having our needs met, for validation, for support, for love, for connection. And so, and then obviously we grow into adults and we put this responsibility on our significant others, right? Our friends, our relationships, right? We put this responsibility of, am I good enough? Am I lovable? Am I, acceptable? Am I worthy of time and attention? And so on the people around us. And again, we never really question this until, at some point perhaps in your life, and if you've done the work with me, chances are you've been through this process where you hit an emotional bottom and you realize that everywhere you look, right, everywhere, whether it's in the depths of a relationship or in the eyes of another person or in another type of situation, a work scenario or some other life circumstance, that need for feeling fulfilled and content with ourselves never quite gets satiated, right? It only gets satiated when we decide that we are enough, when we decide that we are lovable, when we do the work to really honor our own needs and source our own requirements for love. Okay. And so we project this onto externals, and I see it everywhere. I see it all over social media. um, you know, just the constant need for approval, the addiction to the amount of how popular we are on social media and how much people are responding to us or not responding to us, or, it's like this big sort of popularity contest. And this is how human beings operate. We rely on these power structures. Social media is an external power structure, just like education is, just like government, just like, the workforce, just like some of your family systems and certain religions. These are all external power structures where we either succumbing to the norms of this power structure in order to fit into this mold, and be acceptable and successful within these parameters that this mold represents, or we're not. Right? Or we can perhaps at times when it feels authentic and not when it doesn't feel authentic. So depending on where you are in self-awareness and where you are in your inner work journey, you might decide that I don't really want to succumb to these external power structures anymore, or I will, show up when it feels authentic to me and not show up when it doesn't feel authentic to me, and do the things that resonate and don't. I mean, the message simply put, and, I teach this to all my clients, is if it doesn't bring you joy, if it doesn't really inspire joy and you don't feel moved and drawn to it, don't do it, right? Because it's not really worth compromising that. It's not really worth the degree of self-betrayal we must undergo in order to gain the approval of others at times, right? And so this work is really about, learning to take our power back, right? It's learning to love ourselves wholly, fully, completely, regardless of where we are in the world, regardless of position, of finances, of success, of family, of relationship status. Wherever you find yourself, is a manifestation of your belief system, first of all. And, the need for this chronic need for external validation keeps us in a prison of always trying harder and performing and, trying to do more, be more, have more, when ultimately we end up feeling empty on the inside, right? Because we're not really looking to satiate our own need for love. We're looking to satiate what we perceive is other people's need for us to be lovable, right? Or other people's, expectation that we be lovable, or whoever it is in your life that is getting this projection from you. It can be your coworkers, it can be your significant other, it can be our children. Our children are not there to meet our emotional needs. Nothing is really there to meet our emotional needs except reflect back to us strategies that work and don't work when it comes to us getting our own needs met. Okay. And so it's very important as we recover from, just this paradigm of being stuck on what other people think of us, and are we enough, and are we doing enough, and are we likable, are we successful, are we well received by other people or not. The fact of the matter is that, the only sustainable measure of happiness is whether or not we are feeling authentically aligned with how we're showing up. If it brings me joy to do this video and talk to you, sometimes I'm talking to dead space, and sometimes there's people watching, which is wonderful, and asking questions. But it brings me joy to talk about these things that are important to me, because at some point you'll come back and watch it and maybe gain some value from it, and it will have had an impact in your life. And it brings me joy to do that. I don't do the videos because I feel like there's an expectation, or there is an obligation, or there is some kind of, agreement that I made, right? It's that otherwise that would just completely diminish the sentiment and the energy that I infuse into this work, right? So, it's really important, my invitation, we're going to do a guided meditation here together in a few minutes. My invitation as you move forward, really just kind of withdraw your dependency on the need for other people's approval, the need for some outside measure of success or value. Obviously, we live in a world where things cost money, and so we have to exchange value. We have to give our service or our gifts or our whatever it is that we're offering in exchange for this value, so that we continue in this system for as long as we choose to participate in the system. Even that's optional. We can talk about that some other time. It's really important that even within that paradigm of exchanging value, so that we can participate in the world, it must be in a way that brings us joy. It must be in a way that honors our own innate ability, our own innate desires, and our own innate gifts. It brings me joy to share myself in this way, and therefore I happily receive compensation for it that I can use for other things that also brings me joy, whether it's to provide for my family, or to continue to maintain the home that I love, or in the town that I like, or whatever the situation is for you, whatever structures you have in place for your own life, right? And so as we look, my invitation always is to take a step back. If you're doing serious inner work, if you're really, committed to transcending these paradigms that have kept you captive, that ultimately don't really lead to happiness, take a step back and really look at your life and ask yourself how much of what you do is motivated by the need to feel approved of by other people. How much of what you do is motivated by the desire to gain love or recognition or acknowledgement from outside sources, right? How much of these outside sources are responsible for the quality of your state? How much of are we allowing ourselves, our own state of happiness or not happiness, to be dictated by other people's feelings, right? Other people's opinions about us and what we're doing and what we're not doing. Maybe it's a parent you're constantly in this dynamic with, that you've yet to sort of cut ties and release from, or perhaps it's an extended family, or a boss, or something in your life, some scenario in your life where we feel obligated to this structure rather than aligned with this structure, because it really resonates for us and it really allows us the opportunity to be fully self-expressed and honoring ourselves. So I really take a step back and evaluate this, and whether I see it as well. And we talk about eating disorders, we talked about that in the last video, and we see it in young girls, and they're measuring up their bodies with other people, and in boys as well. Men suffer from body dysmorphia as much as women do, and we compare ourselves to others. Again, this is an external power structure. We're measuring ourselves up against other people and what they look like and what the society has decided is normal or beautiful. And how much of our time is spent trying to force ourselves into a mold that doesn't actually feel comfortable, right? Doesn't feel authentic, right? So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, right? I really want you to take a look at what you're participating in your life, to see if there is a constant comparison, a constant reliance on external validation and approval, or if there is, can you give yourself the room to question your relationship, your participation in this structure, and take a step back, so that we can learn to fill in the gaps with our own love and our own self-appreciation, self-affirmation, and ultimately self-realization, right? Because this is the point of the work, is to realize oneself, to realize that we are whole, perfect, and complete exactly as we are. And that will never change, regardless of our opinions, regardless of what we succeed in or don't succeed in, regardless of the choices you make in this lifetime. You will always be a whole, perfect, and complete expression of source consciousness. And it's just a matter of putting the structures in place and having the daily practices to help you stay connected to this awareness, so that you can live in joy and ultimately emotional freedom, right? And peace, which is ultimately the goal of inner work. So with that said, I would like to guide a meditation now, and just again using some of these concepts and really allowing the meditation to open up some areas of your life that you may not necessarily be aware of, or you're not really looking at, and noticing where there is some of this tension, relying on external sources of validation, and really using the practice to surrender that so that we can honor and love ourselves exactly as we are. Okay, so I'm going to invite you now to close your eyes. Take a deep diaphragmatic breath. And you can always help yourself with your hand. Remember that nothing good can come from breathing in the chest. Only fight or flight response is what we're triggering in the body. So push your breath into the belly. Breathe in, belly out. Exhale. Let the belly drop naturally. And notice wherever you're sitting right now, if you can just give yourself permission to fully let go of the past and the future, everything leading up to this moment, everything you heard in the conversation I just shared, and whatever it is you have to do after this practice. And give yourself permission to be fully present. Leaning in, relax the muscles in your forehead, your eyebrows, relax the muscles in your face and jaw, relax the muscles in your neck and shoulders, relax the muscles in your arms and your hands, let them rest wherever they fall. Relax the muscles in your upper chest and abdomen. Keep your belly soft. Relax the muscles in your upper back, all the way down to the lower back, across your hips. Relax your upper legs all the way down to your toes. If you're sitting upright and your feet are connecting to the earth, feel the earth beneath them. You can say a quiet affirmation here. I'm safe and supported. All is well right here, right now. Good. Great. As you continue to focus on the sensation of the breath, no pressure. Okay, let it go. I don't want you to just focus on the breath the whole meditation. Just let it go. Now bring your attention to your heart center. And integrating some of these concepts we've just discussed, I want you to observe. Set an intention to go deeper into the subconscious mind. And we give it permission to release its contents in this meditation. I want to see where I am not free in my life. Show me higher self, where I'm a prisoner to ideas and beliefs that don't belong to me. Where am I reliant on other people, places, things, and situations that get to dictate how I feel about myself? Good. And just reflect on what area of your life where this shows up the most. It could be a health issue, it can be a body issue, it can be a relationship, it can be a partner or a significant other or a boss, perhaps a parental relationship or a relationship with your child. And we feel heavily codependent on these relationships because we rely on them to source our need for love and acceptance and approval. So whatever area you're reflecting on It doesn't matter which area, because if we do it in one area, we do it everywhere. So it doesn't matter which area we work on, just pick one where it's most obvious. And visualize yourself in this scenario really surrendering. You can visually see yourself withdrawing the need for acceptance and approval. Almost like filling in our own gap. Put your hand on your heart. This sends a signal to the brain that you're receiving unconditional love. You are also filling yourself up with love when you do this. We can take a moment to just mourn the strategies that we've implemented in the past that have left us so open and so susceptible to rejection and criticism, feelings of failure, feelings of not belonging, feeling outcasted, feeling like we have fallen short of other people's expectations or perhaps society's idea of success. Just allowing yourself to grieve here for a few minutes for that part of you that it was simply just trying to get certain needs met. The healthy part of you that relied on your caregivers, appropriately so, to get certain needs met, that never learned how to stop doing that. Feel yourself integrating as we pick up all these fractured aspects of ourselves from childhood till this moment. And embrace them into the fold of who we are and how we choose to express ourselves going forward. See this younger version of you where you learned to need, to depend, and wrap your arms around this version. Make sure that he or she knows that you see her or him, that you are there, that you will never abandon. That you are taking responsibility to ensure that all of your own needs are being met. And that we aren't going to give that power away anymore. Good. Take a deep diaphragmatic breath and feel yourself a little more free in this area. Give yourself the space to not be responsible for someone else's opinions or feelings or reactions. You are only responsible for your own needs. That is all. And this is very liberating. To trust that you can make choices that serve your highest and best good and yours alone. Knowing that when we serve the self for ourselves, we serve it for everyone. When we serve our highest good, we serve everybody's highest good, because there is only one self. There's only one high is good. Good. With that said, we're going to anchor this experience with some affirmations. I'm willing to have all of my needs met. I'm willing to advocate for myself in a way that honors me. I'm willing to accept that I am whole and complete. I am both self-reliant and connected to my community in a healthy way. I am learning to be interdependent in all of my relationships. I can fill my own cup. The greatest measure of my success is how I feel about myself. I love and accept myself exactly as I am. Good. All right. Start to bring your awareness back to your body. Slowly, you can wiggle your fingers and toes and gently open your eyes. Good. Welcome back. 15 minutes goes by like that when we're meditating. It takes long when I'm talking, and it flies by when I'm meditating. I hope this practice is helpful. I would love to hear some feedback, some comments. If you have found this practice useful, if there was some area in your life where you felt very like a hostage for external validation, I would love to hear about it. I'm sure other community members would as well. Remember that no one ever recovered alone, so we're here to help and support each other and hold each other accountable in our growth and in our journey, and ultimately to feel loved, right, and a sense of belonging. So I wish you all a happy Wednesday, happy rest of the week until we meet again.